So on behalf of the board of the Canadian Media Association, we'd like to welcome Jesse Lipscombe in this inaugural flight of the online conversation for the Speakers Bureau. And we did send out information about Jesse, but just to reiterate that, Jesse is an actor, producer, entrepreneur, and activist based in Edmonton, Alberta. And we are having our meeting in Toronto and in Ontario, and now available across Canada. Jesse is also the founder of Make It Awkward, a campaign to combat racism and hatred of all kinds. And I think it's very timely that we have you speak to this point today as the temperature and the environment begins to change in Canada and in North America. He brings his message of empowerment and inclusivity to SEMA's membership live tonight from Edmonton. Born and raised in St. Albert, Jesse started his acting career at age 14. Alongside Sidney Poitier in the Calgary shot film Children of the Dust. At 18, he received a full track and field scholarship to Martin Luther King Jr.'s alma mater, Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. And then he went on to win multiple national high jump championships in both Canada and the US. And Jesse, you're high jumping in other areas of your career, we know, at this time. So back in Edmonton, Jesse launched a full entrepreneurial and artistic career, opening fitness studios, restaurants, while continuing to act and produce in award-winning film and television productions. He has been nominated for several Canadian Screen Awards and Alberta Film and Television Awards. And this year, Jesse was the recipient of the Obsidian Award for Top Business Leadership in Western Canada, and was named Community Man of the Year by Diversity Magazine. His top priority is giving back to his community, which he has done and is doing with partnerships and annual fundraisers with Edmonton charities such as Win House and iHuman. So in September, Jesse and his wife Julia launched the Make It Awkward campaign to combat racism, misogyny, homophobia, and hatred of all kinds. Jesse and Julia are parents to 3 young boys. And we look forward to hearing more about Make It Awkward, which was also supported by Mayor Don Iveson, the mayor of Edmonton. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you kindly. I feel like I guess I'm done. That was so long. So that's Jesse. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it so much.
Shortened it. It was long.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Well, I definitely will jump in. What I thought I'd do is break kind of what I'm going to talk about, because I won't take hours, obviously, but just into 3 kind of categories. And the big ones for me are dreams, identity, and diversity. I'm gonna pop off with identity right off the bat, because I think identity is the thing that kind of maybe curated my path to ultimately Make It Awkward existing, and also just how I interact on a daily basis with individuals of all different demographics. So, when I hear people often ask me, Jesse, where are you from? And my answer is, I'll say Canada. And then the next question, well, where are you from? I'm like, okay. See, I already know, there's some people who understand that question because they get it all the time. Where are you from? And, I'll say, oh, I'm from St. Albert, Alberta, actually. And then they give me that face, like, really, where are you from? I'm like, I didn't know you had such a discerning ear. I'm actually from the south side of St. Albert. Now, listen, I know fully well what they're saying is, Jesse, you don't look what I think a Canadian should look like, and I need you to justify why it doesn't work for me. Now, that question, growing up all the time was interesting, because I am from St. Albert. I'm from Alberta. I am a 4th generation Albertan. My kids are 5th generation Albertan. So I'm often, if we're gonna compare and keep score, I'm often more Canadian / Albertan than the majority of the people who are asking me. But at the end of the day, we all look through our own goggles of life and what that's supposed to be. And then unless you are, indigenous and have some treaty rights with this land, everyone is from somewhere. But the real story is, like, I didn't actually know where I was from. And that started a little bit of a journey myself, trying to find out what that was. So now, my grandfather, so my mother's side, his name's Rolly Miles. Rolly Miles is a CFL Hall of Fame, won like 6 Grey Cups in a row for the Eskimos. Sorry, folks, if we crushed you back in the day, but it was my grandpa's fault. So they came from the North Carolinas, and they migrated up here for sports specifically. My mother's side of the family was what would be considered like black royalty in Edmonton. I mean, like when Muhammad Ali came to town, when like George Foreman or whoever it was, if you were black and a celebrity, you'd hang out with my grandparents because they were like that couple. And then my dad's side, a little bit different. My dad's side, he was one of the last families that came from a place called Amber Valley. Now, there's a lot of black history on the East Coast, but very few know about what happens in Alberta. Amber Valley was an all-black settler farming community that existed as a result of post-emancipation proclamation. Of course, Jim Crow came into play, and the exodusters, the people who wanted to find a safe place for their family, they fled west and north. And Alberta was marketing that they had free to cheap land for those who could farm it. And of course, the ex-slaves were the best at the hardship land. And so they're like, oh, great, let's find a spot. So they went up north. And after about 20 families came up there, they tried to close the border and say that, there's no more black spots in Alberta. And they sent messages down to the States saying we didn't think there'd be so many black people coming up here. Now, as a sidebar, if that didn't happen, Alberta would be Wakanda. It would be the greatest place ever, according to me. But of course, that got kind of knocked off right at the border. But the people who did come up, which ended up being about 200 people, Amber Valley and a couple other settling places in Alberta is where they came from. So that's my father's side. My great auntie, her name's Bessie Coleman. She's the first black lady to fly an airplane. So we have some really fun lineage that has come through our family. Interestingly enough, though, that idea of where are you from never really got answered for me in a way that, Canada is my home. Amber Valley is kind of where I came from. But we have a thing in Edmonton called Heritage Days where there's all the different countries of the world and you go there and you eat food and listen to music. And every year that I go there, I always feel this little piece of disconnect because I don't really have a booth to go to. Now, yes, Canada's my booth, but it just didn't ever feel proper, right? So, like, sometimes when I answer that question, they're like, Jesse, where are you from? Well, I'm like, well, here, the answer is this. I'm like, well, a long time ago, on the west coast of the continent of Africa, there was an advertisement for a free cruise, and it wasn't as advertised. And they brought a bunch of people over, and they basically eliminated their lives and their ability to learn and educate. And everyone here, I assume, knows at least an underlying story of what occurred with the American slave trade. But as a result of all of that, I don't know where I'm from. I know that my last name's Lipscombe. My last name's Lipscombe because of the two brothers from Germany named Ned and Ted Lipscombe, who had two different slave plantations in Texas and North Carolina. And as you end up taking the name of whatever slave owner owned your people. And so Lipscombe, you'll see a lot of black Americans with names like Watkins and Smith, and none of these are, relatively traditionally African names or Caribbean names. And usually that comes from, that's that name that's been passed down. And so, this journey to find out who you are is also, when people say, oh man, you have such straight hair or you have curly hair and people are envious of the thing they might not have. I have that often with culture envy. Because when someone can just say, which I imagine a majority of the people listening right now can say they know where they're from, whether that's, Croatia or Ireland, whatever the case is, whether they care about it or not is a privilege. But the fact that they know and they have a choice to decide if it's a part of their life or not, I have like a healthy envy of it. It's really neat to know, just like, well, this is where I'm from. If I choose to dig down my roots, I can do so. I don't have that privilege. The neat part about that was the first kind of feeling of what privilege is, and this idea of whether or not I exercise it or not doesn't mean it exists or it doesn't exist. And so this little hunt as an early age, I think, has always made me very intrigued and with other people and learning their stories and their origin stories. And so, so then now let's fast forward a little touch. So now, I'm acting and I've been an actor for a good chunk of time. I started acting when I was 14. And as in the intro, luckily enough, it was an Emmy-nominated show called Turtle in the Dust with Sidney Poitier. He became my mentor for quite some time. I ended up going to school at Morehouse College, which is HBCU, so that's a historically black college and university, and which was awesome. It was a great place to learn from. Spike Lee went there, Martin Luther King a long time ago, Samuel Jackson. So a lot of great mentors. Denzel Washington's son was there, and learned a ton about stuff that I didn't necessarily have access to in St. Albert. So while I was there, and then I ended up coming back to Edmonton as an actor. And I remember I was shooting a commercial downtown talking about how wonderful our city is. Ironically enough, during that time, this car pulls up, screams these racial slurs at me. And I walked over to the car. And really, it was the end of a day, a long shooting day. And I was really, probably on any other time, I might not have even said anything, but I was actually just a little fed up with the day. I was like, I'm doing my own business here and this occurs. So I walked over to the car. And what I did is not the thing one should do. I've never say you should walk up to someone's car, open the door, which I did. Actually, Stan, you have a video of this piece right here, right?
Yeah.
So I'll play this video real quick, and then I'll talk about what happened, and that'll give some context, okay? But the interesting thing was I was so curious at that stage of just like why. You know, I wasn't angry because it's not new. I mean, any visible minority, whether that's a woman or any visible ethnicity that's not white, it's not abnormal for you to have, whether it be catcalls or comments about your race or whatever the case, from micro to macro on a daily basis. But for me, you know, at this day, I just wanted to ask the question about why. And sometimes when you walk up to somebody and actually put a human connection to what happened, as opposed to, you know, that little space between your car, and you can make jokes about somebody, but they're not real people until you actually face to face and there's a connection, then there's energy there. Not until that happens do you usually get real interaction. So I did that. And even though he defended it and said it didn't happen and sped away, without a doubt, there was a piece of impact there that didn't have to exist with me being angry. Obviously, if I get angry, start a fight, then I become the stereotype that I would hate to perpetuate. That's not the thing. What I wanted to do is actually engage in conversation, and difficult conversations. And, you know, this is where Make It Awkward actually existed. I also didn't want to make it just a black and white thing, because these isms exist across the board, whether that's Islamophobia, whether that's sexism. We can go down the board with what it is. But principally, they're exactly the same. It often is, you know, people ignorantly using something they don't know about, something they might be fearful about, and something they're insecure about to make themselves feel a little bit better or make it a joke or whatnot. So this video went viral out of nowhere, had no anticipation of it doing so, but was well aware of what the platform that was created as a result of it. Then I had two options of either doing nothing with it or using it. And so we decided to use it as a platform for, you know, disseminating conversation in awkward ways the best way we could. I've been a public speaker well before this existed. I've been a television personality and an actor well before this existed. So the being put, you know, forefront into cameras and speaking wasn't, I was okay with that, and I actually gladly welcomed it. I mean, these are the same things I'd been saying for quite some time. So, you know, we went on a relatively long speaking tour that's still going. We speak 2-3 times a week. You know, had you know, an annual summit where we do some things, which is nice. But at the end of the day, what it has done is it's bigger than, it's not just about me. It's now become a platform where people can share information. You could simply hashtag Make It Awkward, and that thing alone just populates a whole conversation of either supporters or dissenters, which is fine, but conversations are actually occurring about things that need to happen. And the main focus of Make It Awkward is creating everyday activists. It's not about trying to change the entire world at once, but it's changing like the rooms and these conversations we're in. Or, you know, let's just say Stan and I are having a discussion, and I say something untoward about a woman. It's Stan's job to call me out on that, right? She's not there right now, but that doesn't mean that we don't take care of those who aren't there. The whole idea of Make It Awkward is, yes, all of us have different privileges, and those who don't have them, it's our job to help and ensure that they're in just a safe place as we are. And we've heard this before, like, until everyone's free, no one's free. But this is kind of like the idea with this. It's fully our duty to take care of everyone else. It shouldn't be up to me while I'm getting verbally accosted to also stick up for myself. It should be up to Anna, to Stan, whoever's there witnessing it. And that awkward feeling where we want to just put our head down and hope it disappears, even when that happens and it does disappear, we have that gut feeling where like, I should have done something. I should have said something. Myself, if I don't say something, I say the same thing. And then one dude or woman who did the comment probably doesn't think twice about it. And now we're carrying around all this negativity and grossness with us for no reason. We didn't do anything wrong. And I wanted to maybe give people the tools that they could use when they're in these situations. Because at the end of the day, people don't step up and do the right things as far as I'm concerned. It's because they're not equipped with how to do it. It's a scary situation sometimes. Sometimes you're worrying about personal safety. And so over the course of like 2 years, we basically created 3 or 4 different tools that everybody could use, which has been really great throughout schools, universities, and businesses. So I'll do a quick little synopsis of what those 3 things are. The first one is called Why. Why is essentially, let's say you're at home at the awkward Christmas, Thanksgiving present dinner, and uncle or auntie says something weird. And normally, we have these awkward laughs because we just want it to end. And everyone knows that it's not appropriate, but nobody says anything, and we just giggle and hope it goes away. Now, if it was a stand-up comedian and he sent a joke out there and nobody laughed, that joke is no longer on their set list. It's over. No more. But we laugh. We kind of give it, I guess we're trying to say it's okay. But instead of saying it's okay, we can ask the simple question of, hey, uncle, I don't know why you thought that was funny. Now, listen, I don't assume that you're a bad dude, but could you maybe explain to everyone, since you have the floor, why you think that's appropriate? Why a couple of times hate and racism disintegrate? Because it doesn't actually make sense when you're trying to defend it. It doesn't make sense. But simply asking why and not trying to be a jerk about it opens the door for them to let the bottom fall out on their own. Second one is the friend zone. The friend zone is a great one when you're in public. And it's the one where it allows you not to put yourself in harm's way. So I'm only using Anna and Stan because those are the names that are on there. But if Anna and I were on the bus together, and I saw somebody verbally accosting her and I didn't know her, and this dude's giant. Now, by the way, I am giant. I'm like 6'3", 260 pounds, pure muscle. But let's just say he's bigger than that. Okay, so I'm fully scared right now, and I don't want to approach him because who knows what will happen to me. But I don't need to worry about him. Instead, I should worry about Anna. I should just sit down beside Anna and say, listen, he doesn't speak for all of us. Don't even look at him. Look at me. Let's just have a chat. We can just get to know each other. And then someone else can do that. And by the end of the day, you have a whole bus. Now that one person is alienated instead of that feeling like they're all alone. Because when you're being verbally accosted, even in a huge public place, you still feel by yourself because everybody wants to get away from the situation. And the idea is we need to come together because that's how those things actually help and change things. The last one's called Get the Lettuce Out. Now, get the lettuce out. Here's an example. So today I put on this shirt. You can't see it, but there's like sharks and this shirt's hot. It looks great. And I put it on purpose because I was about to do an on-screen little thing here. I want to make sure I look fly. But if I were to ate a little sandwich and I got lettuce in my teeth right now, and I didn't look before I got on the screen, but Stan saw the lettuce in my teeth and he didn't say anything before I got here. And I'm like, hey, I'm Jesse. There's lettuce. And I didn't notice. If Stan said that, A, we're not friends. You're bad friends, Stan. Don't do that. You have to tell me about lettuce. But B, what happens is I would want him to tell me about the lettuce in my teeth. Imagine now that lettuce is a sexist or racist or inappropriate comment. Now, I'm not a sexist, racist, inappropriate dude, and Stan knows that, but if I were to say something that didn't fit that, it's up to him to tell me. And it's up to me to tell him. This is for those close relationships where you know each other, but people don't want to step on each other's toes. They don't want to ruffle feathers. So it's actually our job to do it, not because it will be awkward, but because you would want someone to do that for you. Sometimes we make these comments we didn't mean to hurt someone's feelings. We thought it was actually funny. And we didn't know until we were told by someone who cares about us that this is how it should be. So those 3 things have been they've been real nice in most situations to be able to tackle stuff without any anger, without trying to be like a jerk about it, but just asking the questions and standing up for the people who can't for themselves or shouldn't for themselves, and also holding your friends and family in check when they step sideways because you want them to do it for you. So those tools, those existed for Make It Awkward, which was great. As we kept moving forward, Stan, how much time do I have on my story? Because I tell you, we can go for hours. Where we got?
Madeline?
No, we have another 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll try not to take all of those, but I'll just keep kind of moving forward of how these things have evolved into real tangible things that have, from what I've gathered and what I've received back, things that really do help out in whether it be workplaces, life. One of the biggest ones came from Jane Elliott. Now, Jane Elliott, she was on Oprah. She did the blue eye, brown eye test. She's been an activist for a very long time. You may or may not have heard of her. We had her at the Make It Awkward Summit. And she asked me a question that will stick with me till the day I die. So I'll ask you guys the same question. So we all know what the golden rule is, right? You treat other people the way
you like to be treated.
You want to be treated.
Yeah, you want to be treated. And then she's like, no, that's so selfish of you. Why would you treat other people the way you want to be treated? Why don't we say treat other people the way they want to be treated? And it was like just this big switch. It's like, you're absolutely right. Why would I assume that how I want to be treated is how Stan wants to be treated? I should ask Stan before I make that assumption. I might like to have someone slap me in the face every single time I meet them. It's just me. I'm weird. Should I assume that everybody likes that? That would be crazy, right? That's the idea of maybe taking that 1 second to learn who that person is before I assume this is what they want goes so far. And I think it goes so far many times when we're trying to help people. Because often we try to help, and our help, we say, here's what I would do. I think you should do it this way. I'm only offering help, intent versus impact. I've decided that someone's life isn't the way I think they'd like it, so I just decide to put myself in there and help it out. And I'm trying to be great and help everything out, but I forgot to ask, do you want my help? How could I help you? As opposed to saying, this is what I'm going to do. That step has been ginormous for me in me trying to be somewhat of an ally to different demographics that I don't know about, and asking first is such a huge piece. And not being scared to take a misstep. And social media, man, that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of the middle, so not our far right or far left, but why the middle stays out. But the middle is like where all of us, most of us exist. This idea, if I say something wrong online, there's this huge pylon where people are trying their absolute best to discredit and destroy my reputation. So I'd rather just stay away and not come to the aid or say the things because I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think that idea of not being so fearful about misstepping, but asking first, not staying out of the fight, but getting into it in a way where you feel safe is where so much of us could really turn the tide, instead of us just listening to the fringes, the loud fringes that will scare anybody away from having an opinion that doesn't necessarily fit that opinion of the fringes. I found myself alienated when I did the Make It Awkward campaign. It was to everything. I was catering too much to white people, not just the black struggle, or it was too much of this, and for me, I don't mind being in the fire, but I could see someone maybe not equipped or excited about that, not wanting to tread that water at all. Because it was difficult for me having, the barrage of trolls all day long, just telling me how horrible I am and how bad this is. But I knew I'm operating from an authentic, truthful spot. But at the end of the day, it takes courage, for sure, to step out of our own comfort zone to really fight for something that doesn't affect us. That's like one of the biggest pieces ever. And I see this too with how polarizing politics are, but things that don't affect us directly and us going out of our way and adding, emotional and physical energy to fight for that. And that's that in, Make It Awkward, and my opinion, is one of the ways that I think we really connect everybody. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is that idea of connection. So lots of what Make It Awkward is obviously comes from how I feel, and I feel that we are connected in a way that I think a lot of us don't even pay a lot of attention and credit. So I was driving my car 2 years ago. It was winter. I didn't have my seatbelt on. I was texting, and that's a bad idea, and I was speeding. And so my car spun out, and I hit a tree, and the tree impaled on the driver's side, and it broke my femur, and my femur popped out of the inside of my leg while I was driving. And then there was just blood squirting everywhere. Now, that's a lie. I made that up. But I made it up on purpose. So I saw two of you. I saw Anna and I saw someone else that were listening to the story, and they had a physical reaction to what I just said. Okay, there was a physical reaction. Sometimes people are like, ugh, gross, like an audible reaction. To tell me we're not connected. I haven't met you ever in my life. I just said a couple of words, and you physically felt me. Right? Just with words that we say. Like how powerful what we do and what we say to other people is. And this is why it's so important for us to take those little pieces and actually, if I'm in a position to help and it causes a touch of uncomfortable pieces in my life, it's my duty to, because what I say and what I do it really affects people, even if I haven't known them beforehand. If I can cause a physical reaction in your body with 7 words and we've never met over a screen, like imagine what happens with actual intent and actual care to actually make the changes that matter. So Make It Awkward, in a nutshell, 24 minutes. You guys are great. Now let's talk with questions, because who knows if I even talked about anything you wanted to hear about. That's me.